This is Jim with My Board Games, and today I'm going to be talking about a game called Happiness, not to be confused with a whole different game called The Pursuit of Happiness. So in terms of the history of Happiness, the board game, I couldn't find a whole lot. Fortunately, there are some pretty awesome websites that cover specifically board games. There was one website called Toy Tales, and according to it, and just about everybody else that I could find, it looks like this was released in 1972 by the Milton Bradley Company, as indicated on the front of the board game, and also the paperwork inside also indicates 1972. It's basically a throwback to the days of Flower Power, and in fact it's really easy to see that, besides the fact that it's colorful. According to them, it's got groovy overtones, and there are a few things in here you could say is sort of born from the Flower Power era, I suppose. Love of Nature contest, win 1,000. You grow a flower. Is that really proof of that it's from, the Flower Power era? I'm not so sure. The truth is, most of the spaces that you land on say pretty ordinary things. Hurt feelings of friend, go back to the start. You gave a party. Date was fun. You're truthful. Those are pretty just sort of generic statements that aren't really tied to Flower Power, but I guess there's maybe a few things you possibly can consider that it is sort of the Flower Power thing. Definitely the color of everything. It's very colorful. They have rainbows on all four corners of the playing board, and so maybe they've got a point. Another website called Geeky Hobbies, they kind of reviewed it. According to them, it's just another one of the many games that were made in the 70s and the 80s that kind of had a short shelf life. There was a lot of board manufacturers and just individuals that were trying to come up with new types of board games, and this was one of them that never really caught on. And according to this Geek Hobbies guy, he said he ran into it at a thrift store, decided to buy it and try it. He had a feeling that it wouldn't be a very good game, but it would be a unique experience, and he said after he played it, he figured he was right on both counts. There is a lot going on with this game, but let's just go ahead and get started. This here is the inside of the top of the box, and as you can see, you earn these keys and fill your rainbow stand to reach your rainbow of happiness. That's the essence of this game. Once you fill that stand, you will win the game. And as they say down below, it is a family game with tracks that gives players a chance to help others, win money, gain self-improvement, and to overcome hang-ups, and ultimately reaching their rainbow of happiness. So the first thing you have to do is to determine the number of players. You can have up to 6. For our example today, I'm just going to go with 3. Each player gets a marker, a happiness button, and a rainbow tower. And they're all color-coded. The purpose of the marker is to move about the board of play. The purpose of the happiness button is to put on a fate space, and that will block other players from having to accept a fate card. More on that later. And as already described, the purpose of the rainbow tower is to collect and hold your key cards in an effort to win the game.
Yeah!
There are several types of cards used in this game, but we're going to start with the hang-up cards because that's the other thing that each player gets. In this game you get hang-ups, and you get your first hang-up before the game starts, and that comes from these hang-up cards. So everybody is dealt one card, and then the rest are just put aside. Of course, shuffle the deck first. You'll also notice at the bottom of the board, there are a couple of blank spaces, an orange space and a red space. Actually, it's kind of fuchsia. The orange one is marked self-improvement, and the fuchsia is marked fate. Shuffle the cards and put them in their respective spot. Each deck of cards has a corresponding orange or fuchsia space. Every time a player, as they move about the track, if they land on a fuchsia or orange space, they will pick a card from the proper deck. Now, one of the ways that you move about the various tracks is with spinners. But another way you move about the tracks is with cards. Each track, of which there are 6, has their own method. And the self-improvement track has self-improvement cards, so that's another type of card that you have to shuffle and put out on the board. And then with the health track, you have these cute little bicycle wheel cards that you have to shuffle. And finally, we have the key cards. There are 6 key cards because there are 6 places in each tower. They are knowledge, faith, health, money, friendship, and love. And so you may have noticed I said there are 6 types of key cards and 6 types of tracks. And they mostly go together, but not entirely. So just to review, starting with the love track, you have a love card right here. But the next track we run into is the self-improvement track, of which there is no card for. The self-improvement track is simply to get rid of the hang-ups. And again, every time you land on a self-improvement space, which are all over the board, you get a self-improvement card, and then that card will be used to cancel out the hang-up card if it matches up. Moving on with the tracks, the next track is the knowledge track, and of course there is a knowledge card. Where is that? Right there is the knowledge card. Then you have your faith track with faith cards. You'll also notice that these more or less match up color-wise, but anyhow, you have the health track and a health card, and the friendship track and a friendship card. So, what is the extra card? We know what the extra track is now. That is the self-improvement track, but where's the extra card? Well, that is a money card, and that's a little green card over here. And there are, you will notice, little green spaces about the different tracks. And whenever you land on a green space, you'll get money, and when you get enough money, you get a green card. So basically, in summary, what happens is you start off on this central white spinning wheel, and you'll put your markers on the wheel, spin the wheel in turn, and get off on one of the 6 tracks. As you work your way around the track, towards the end, you may get some money, you may get a fate card, which might give you another hang-up, and it does some other good things too. Or you might actually land on a orange self-improvement card, hopefully to get rid of a hang-up. Now you'll also have these blue spaces, which every single track has one blue space, and that blue space will send you back to the beginning of the track. But once you reach the end of the track, you will earn the card for that track. If you get to the end of the love track, you get the love card and you put it in your rainbow stand. You then move back to the wheel. We will do the final step in the setup real quick by putting out the money. And you just have $1,000 bills and $500 bills. And just set those next to the board. So the next step in getting started is to determine who not only starts first, but who gets to put their marker on the wheel first. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Even though it's not covered in the instructions, you just have to come up with something, you know, like rolling dice or cutting a deck of cards or whatever else you can come up with. I'm just going to randomly put these markers on the wheel. By the way, they snap into the wheel so they don't fall off when you spin the wheel around. The last thing is to put your happy spaces on the board. And the way this works is every player takes their happy space and puts it on a fate space. So we'll do that real quick. And the way that works is as the markers are moving around the track, if the red marker, let's say, is on the love track and lands on this fate space, it's got another player's happiness button on it, and that will prevent the red player from drawing a fate card. Again, fate cards are generally bad news. So that's a good thing. So if that happens, then the orange player who put the happiness button on the space, they get to draw a self-improvement card, and that may lead to them getting rid of one of their hang-ups. So what happens if the orange lands on a fate space? Well, nothing, because that's their button. They can't block themselves, and they'll just treat a fate space as they normally do, which means they'll draw a fate card. So let's go ahead and get started and see what happens. We're just going to kind of do a mock presentation of the game. And so we're going to pretend that it was the red player's turn to start, and they spin the wheel and they land on the faith track. It's the beginning of the game, so of course they're going to get off and get started. So they go onto the start track, and when you do that, you really need to make sure you don't accidentally spin the wheel, because that comes into play, and we'll talk about that later. So now that they're on the start, they get to spin the wheel and get moving. In this case, on the faith track, the wheel spinner is a lightning bolt. So spin the wheel, and that lands on a 1. And so the red player gets to move 1. And that is never give up. All of the spaces on a given track relate to the type of track that it is. So the faith track will say things like, search the truth, or sincerity is in, or the blue space that sends you back to the start. You still have doubt, back to the start. But back to the yellow spaces, they don't do anything. They are just there for kind of a placeholder, just to help move the game along and get you closer to the end of the track. So now at this point, the yellow player could spin if they wanted to, but they're already pointed towards a track that they need to get. They need to get the friendship card, so they can just go ahead and get off right there. You don't have to spin the wheel again. They would then use the hand to get started. Now this hand has got a ball bearing on one end, and of course 5 fingers, each one is numbered. And if you tilt the hand, the ball bearing will move forward into one of those fingers, and it will have a number on it, as already mentioned. In this case, it was 2. So the yellow player moves 2 steps, also landing on a yellow. In this case, it says, loyalty is your bag. So again, loyalty, being something that's related to friendship, everything around that friendship track will say something about friendship. And so then if the orange player was to go next, they actually are pointed right now on self-improvement. And they may want to get off on the self-improvement track to get rid of a hang-up. But remember, as you go around the other tracks, there are also self-improvement spaces. So I'm going to assume that the orange player might decide that they want to go ahead and spin and get started on another track. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And look, they landed on the friendship track. And of course, just because there's someone else on the friendship track doesn't mean you can't also get on the track. Of course you can. So now that they're on the track, they get to tilt the hand. And in that case, it landed on 5. Now again, it is another yellow space, but they are a lot closer to the end of the track. This time it says share things. So at this point, I want to just sort of step back and go through each track one at a time and talk a little bit more about it. We'll pretend that the game has gone on for a while and that the red has made it all the way to the end. And if they would have landed on a green space, they would have gotten some money. The green spaces are all going to be either $500 or $1,000. And once you get $2,500, then you will get the green money card to put in your stand. Once the red player gets to the end, 2 things are going to happen. Again, they will be able to pick up a faith card, put it in their tower, but also move back to the wheel. And they've got 2 choices here. If the spot pointing at the start of this track is open, then they go on that spot. But if it was already taken, they could have selected any other spot. But the first choice is to go right on to the track. In this case, the turn is over until next time around, and then you can spin the wheel. So real quick, looking at the health track, as you go around the health track, you'll notice there's no spinner or anything. So instead they use these cute little bicycle tire cards, and you just flip them over one at a time. 3. So if red was here, he would move 3, get to a yellow space. And as already mentioned, once they get to the end, 2 things will happen. They'll get a health card, move over here onto their tower. Actually, their tower's over there. And then they go back onto the wheel and then wait their turn next time and get to spin the wheel again. With friendship, we've already talked about the idea that there's this hand with the ball bearing inside, and that's how you move about that track. Over here, you have this heart spinner, which is another thing that you have to put in. It kind of comes out for storage, but then you put it back in when it's time to play, and that just spins around. It doesn't spin very smoothly. Same thing happens when you get to the end. You move back to the wheel, get the love card to put in your tower. Now back up to self-improvement. Again, self-improvement is only used to get rid of these hang-ups and other hang-ups that you may get from the fate cards. Once you get here, you will pick up a card, 4. Let's pretend that yellow's over here now. You would move 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, you landed on self-improvement, so you get to draw a self-improvement card. And that says, self-improvement, you have overcome a hang-up for friendship. So if the yellow player had a friendship hang-up, which they don't, they've got a health hang-up, but if they did, they could get rid of that and just move it off to the side. But in this case, you still have a health hang-up, but you can hang on to this. So you are allowed to hang on to this overcome friendship card in case next time you pull a fate card, it says that you have a friendship hang-up. So again, to move around this board, you would just keep drawing cards, moving more spaces until the end, and then that end process happens again. So finally, we have now the knowledge track, and in this case, it is kind of an old-fashioned representation of a computer with this tape drive and then a tape reel that spins. And just spin it. It's kind of interesting that some of them have 1 through 4, others have 1 through 6. Actually, this one has 1 through 5 on faith. So in reviewing these fate cards, again, you've got different hang-ups for money, faith, friendship, love, and so forth. And the only way you're going to get rid of those is to get a self-improvement card that tells you that you have overcome that particular hang-up. The other thing you may overcome with fate is a card that says, great luck, take any key. And that's a big deal, because to just take one of these keys and slide it into your stand, that means you don't have to go around one of these tracks. And as you can see, there is also another card that directs you to draw another self-improvement card. So that can really go real far to getting you to winning the game. Now taking a closer look at the self-improvement cards, again, you've got the standard self-improvement. You have overcome a hang-up for money in this case, and you'll find the same thing for knowledge, love, etc. But there's another one in here that says, self-improvement, you have overcome a hang-up of your choice. Again, kind of a big deal, because you have to get rid of those hang-up cards before you win the game. If you get your tower completely full, but you've got 1 or maybe more hang-ups, you cannot win the game yet. You have to keep going around the different tracks to overcome the hang-ups. Now in that case, you would probably try to get on the self-improvement track, because there are 4 orange spots and 4 opportunities to draw that card. Whereas every other track has only got 1 or 2 self-improvement spots. And so that's it. You see this game at a thrift store or a garage sale, maybe pick it up and give it a whirl. Okay, well that does it for the Happiness board game video. I appreciate you watching, and of course we always appreciate it when you like, comment, and share. Thanks again.